Welcome to the Path of Least Expectance, a podcast. I am your host, Michaela Batten, and today we have one of my favorite firecrackers, is what I'm going to call you, Alisha Thomas. So, the owner of Wait What Consulting and fashion brand Ruby Asata, and so much more, which she'll dive into. She is the brain behind the books and the hands behind the fashions. I added that one in there. She has a formal degree in art and design and an informal degree in small creative business. So, how did she go from fashion to finance? We will find out today. I'm so excited to hear her journey down the path of least expectance. Alisha, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I know this was a last minute. I thought, oh my gosh, Alicia's going to be perfect. I'm calling her and having her on next week. So you didn't have much notice on this. Like, we haven't had a conversation, or we didn't have a meetup where I was like, I'd love to tell your story. I just kind of like threw this on you.
Yeah, I love doing podcasts. I love podcasts in general and listening to them. And so I would like also yeah, so I was psyched about it. And weirdly, Dallas is here to take care of the baby, so it worked out.
Perfect. Love when that happens. Okay, so take us back to the beginning. We like to start in the beginning of the journey. You can go back as far as you'd like, at least back to college. If you feel like there's part of the story that needs to go back further, um, please share. I always like to start too with like, what did you want to be when you grew up? Like, what?
Yeah. So
Yeah, okay.
I was going to start with that, which is really strange. So it's really funny. My story I feel like is very long and wind. And also this podcast is like, whenever you ask me, that's the other thing is like, I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing. It is literally the least likely thing I'd be doing. So I'm that person that like from a small child, I always knew what I wanted to be. I just wanted to be a fashion designer. That's all I wanted to do. I remember like, in elementary school, they'd be like, all right, pick a book on your career. And I'm like, okay, do you have a book on fashion design?
Right.
And
It's very specific.
right. In rural Missouri, they did not have that. I used to watch on PBS, they had like Fashion File and Video Fashion Weekly. And so I'd watch that on the weekends. And that's like how I like learned about fashion in Missouri. And that's all I ever wanted to do. So my grandma sewed. I learned to sew at an early age. I've kind of always sewn. And then my dad is really mechanical and he does fabrication and woodworking. And so like I have a good like design brain like for that. So anyway, I thought that's all I was ever going to do. And then I graduated from high school. I made really bad grades in high school. And I went to the community college in Raleigh, Wake Tech, because I was going to transfer to state to go to textiles, like to
Okay.
school. That was my plan. Also, like, I would have loved to have gone to like like a big school, but like I didn't have money. And this was like the best I could do. And then, I met a boy and he lived in Wilmington. And so
That's what you took you here.
yeah. And
Okay.
so I was like, I didn't even care at that point about school. You know what I mean? Then you're just like, oh, I'm just going to go here because this boy's here. And then I went to UNCW and I was like, great, just give me whatever art thing you have. And, because they don't even have like a BFA. So I didn't even care though. I was like, I just was in love with this boy and I moved here and so I was a junior. So once you enter your junior year, you can't transfer. I'd have to,
Yeah.
the moral of the story, we broke up
I was
six
just
months.
going to say, please tell me
Yeah.
this was Dallas, and it's not. Okay.
No, it's
So
not.
this
So
is
we
where
broke.
it gets really interesting. Okay.
So we broke up. I lived here about 6 months, and we broken up. And so then I couldn't like you. I would have had to like given up that whole first semester to like move schools again. And so I was like, I just couldn't do that, like money wise. So I was like, I'm here, so I'm just going to finish going to school here. So I finished going to school at UNCW. I did mostly textile stuff. So like, so there's no real curriculum there as far as like, so the cool thing is that you can kind of do whatever you want. So I took a lot of like serigraphy, like screen printing classes. And I also worked in the costume shop. And so like I was sewing and screen printing and like I even made an independent study where I just made handbags. And so my senior exhibit was like screen printed bags that I'd made. Like, so I mean, I was
You
doing.
really embraced the do it yourself, like the I'm going to make my own imprint, which is really cool. I love that you had that as a, like, in college, like I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
actually, you know what? I did a thesis. So I went to design school and
yeah.
I went for design and business, but I ended up doing my senior thesis on how the blind learn to tap dance. And I
What?
remember thinking, like, why did I go to design school and why am I doing this? But, like, I don't know. It worked, right? Yours worked. You did screen printing handbags and it worked. That's what you
Yeah,
did.
it worked. Yeah. So in the meantime, my dad like restores old cars, and he had gotten an industrial sewing machine, and then he taught himself how to do interiors in cars with leather. And then I was like,
Ooh.
yeah, so this is where it connects to where like my dad was like, I have this. So then I would go home and I was like, oh my gosh, leather is like just so durable. And so yeah, so then my dad taught me how to sew with leather, and then I learned how to make, like, then it really, like, I would like go to thrift stores, take handbags apart, figure out how to make them, and I did that. So then I've also been making stuff under Ruby Asata since like high school. So
Okay.
like, so that wasn't like a new thing. So I was making stuff, I was working in the costume shop, and that's kind of like I was doing, like, I at this point I was like selling stuff to stores and wholesale, and like, I'm like 25, 6, something like that. And so I assumed that I was just like, I'm gonna keep gung-ho like trying to make stuff and do Ruby Asada.
So
That was
you
my
were really
plan.
happy. Like you were very satisfied,
It was
fulfilled,
very, yeah, so it's
very
very
happy.
poor, but very poor. I
Right.
mean, I was like waiting tables in the costume shop making bags. And at this point, like Dallas and I started dating. I make Dallas move to Wilmington. He moves to Wilmington, where
Yeah, you're like, I tried this. Mm-mm, you're coming to me. I already
yeah,
tried this one time. We're not doing this again.
yeah, well, and I basically was like, we don't have, we just talked about this morning. I was like, we don't have to live here forever. We just need to live here for like, I like already have a job here. Just move here. We'll have a year to figure it out, and then we'll move. And that was
Mm-hmm.
like 10 years ago, and we still live here.
Awesome.
Because Wilmington like just sucks you in like that.
It
I
does.
mean, it really does. So yeah, so I'm making bags, I'm doing stuff. We're happy, I'm young. And then I have friends with some people starting Freaker. So if you don't know what Freaker is, this was back in 2011. Yeah. So 2011, Freaker is a knit bottle insulator. So basically, the guy who started it, he was making them out of old sweaters, and then he figured out, like, he worked with some mills. North Carolina is the largest hosiery. Like, we have the most hosiery mills in the U.S. So it was really easy for him to really easy probably isn't the right word, but it was easier to like make that happen in North
Right.
Carolina. So he started making them these knit bottle insulator like freakers. And so I had several friends that were working there, and they had just done a Kickstarter, and I had previously done a Kickstarter for Ruby Asata. And so like I knew the drill. And so I was like, hey, I can help you guys like do fulfillment. I knew like the platform, and I had time. And so I started
And you're
helping
like,
them.
oh, some extra money. Great. Perfect. This
Yeah.
works.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
seriously. I was just like it, and I was working, it was the summer, and so I was going to work at the costume. I managed the costume shop at UNCW. So I like taught kids how to sew, and like, so it was like this summer before that. So I was like, I have some time, I can help you guys. So I started like helping them do for like, also like literally they have no idea what they're doing. Nobody went to school for business. It was bad. But I didn't know it's bad. You don't know it's bad. You're like, oh, we're doing it.
Right.
And so yeah, so then Zach was like, why don't you just stay? And I was like, I can't stay. I need money. And he's like, we'll pay you more money. We'll pay you $10 an hour. And I was like,
Woo!
that's,
Woo!
I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I just remember it being like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And so, yeah. So I get in there, and I'm basically like, so they left to go like to trade shows and stuff. Like, so Zach and like Lauren and some of the other, like, eventually we all became
The
owners of the
team.
company. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I was just a person. I mean, I was the only person that worked there, but I was just like, why are there all these bills that need to be paid? And they also had stacks of checks that need to go in the bank. And I was like, isn't there like some sort of system for this stuff? It's called accounting, but I didn't even know what
Right.
accounting was. Like, I didn't even know it existed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know how, like, so I was like, well, we've got to figure out some sort of system for all these bills and stuff and all these checks. And so we had an intern, and her mom was a CPA.
Okay.
So Janet, sweetheart, Janet's like, I'll help you. So Janet, on Saturdays, Janet would come to Freaker, sit with me for 4 or 5 hours and teach me accounting.
God
We do
bless Janet.
coffee. I mean, for
God
free.
bless. Mm-hmm.
Like, why would she do this? And I think she just liked it, and we got along really well. So Janet, yeah, taught me how to do accounting. And so I remember like crying over sales tax, trying to like figure it, like just like trying to figure all of it out. And so Janet really helped me figure stuff out. So fast forward, basically we're going along. Freaker, we have like $500 in our checking account, and then Shark Tank happens. So Zach goes on Shark Tank, and
Okay.
that's when it just like really blew up. And then I became like a part owner because like there was no money, but it's that thing of like this is going to get better. So I got equity in the company, and yeah, and then it just blew up. And then
It did
that's
get
when
better, a lot better.
yeah, it got a lot better. It got, well, I mean, it got a lot harder, but it got a lot better. Yeah. So then, then I was at Freaker for like 6 years. And when I left, we were selling at like Walmart and Bed Bath, and we had like 30 employees, and we were in like every retailer you can think of, we sold to. We made socks at that point. Like, I mean, anytime I drive anywhere, I'm like, we used to sell Freakers there. I mean, it was crazy.
Yes. I
So
remember I lived in New York City at the time and I was in Urban Outfitters. Did you guys sell there? Or was that the, yeah. So I remember I like saw one and I was like, wait a second. Cause I was from Wilmington and I knew what it was before like
yeah.
it was something big. And I remember thinking, wow, they really made it. Like that's big.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we had a Japanese distributor at one time. We had an Australian distributor. I mean, we sold in Target. We sold in Harris T. I mean, we sold in like
So
CVS. It
meanwhile,
was
you are still managing all of this with Janet's accounting skills.
yeah. Oh, well, so no, it got better. So
Okay.
we then outsourced. So then we had outsourced a CFO that was like helping us to do, because at this point this has gotten like really
Huge.
big. And then I had hired bookkeepers. So then I was like kind of managing everything. So like I would talk to this sort of outsourced CFO that was helping us, and then bookkeepers that were doing like daily bookkeeping. And so I was, because at this point I had figured out how to do like payroll for 30 people. We had a warehouse. I had figured out 401ks. I had figured out health insurance for all of us. And like we were like I mean, we were a real corporation, but yeah. And so at that point I like wasn't doing as much, like I was more overseeing stuff. But yeah, it was crazy. And I was really stressed out. I worked all the time, and then Dallas started working there. My
Were you guys
husband
married at this point? Or no, not yet.
no, we got married while we were working there.
Okay.
I did a trade for catering for Freakers for a part of our wedding.
Love that.
Yeah. Dallas went to school. My husband Dallas went to school for art, but like for he went for like painting. So like very like
Fine
traditional, like,
art.
fine arts. Yeah. But he learned design, like graphic design, and then he started designing Freakers. And so he was a designer there. So we worked together all the time. And it just was, after years of it, it was really stressful. I mean, like I like lived and breathed Freaker, and I was so stressed out and I was so tired, and I wanted to like just do something else. And I also was just like, I really want to get back to like making stuff. I didn't make anything at this point. I was so burnt out. Um, and so I like made the decision to leave, which was like a really hard decision, like because I remember I like wrote like what is it called when you're leaving? A letter of
You resigning?
yeah, a letter
Resignment.
yeah.
You resigned. A
Yeah.
letter.
So I was like
A
basically
farewell.
yes. And I remember I wrote that, and it was months before I had like I just couldn't do it. I would get sick like
Yeah.
thinking about leaving. I also like was supporting, I felt responsible for all these people and like making sure that like things were running. And so and I knew that Zach didn't want to do like any of the like people managing or money. He didn't do any of that kind of stuff. He did like sales, basically. He's sales and marketing. That's what that dude did. So like I did all this other crap. So it was just really hard. And I felt like I didn't know what I was going to do. Also, when you're making a salary and you have health insurance, it's so hard to like walk away from that.
Literally like the last podcast I did, I don't know if you heard it or not, but like one of the main takeaways was it's really hard to leave something great for something greater. But it happens. Like you just have to decide like, okay, I'm in something that's good and it's great, but it's just not suiting me right now and I've got to give it up. Like it's not easy, and I don't, like
Well,
you said, months of sitting there, but you're just
yeah.
like there
But
is something greater.
here's the thing that really got me though. And this is the thing for like any human that's like working in a corporation and you think things are safe. You're like, I'm so safe here. You don't know what's happening. So behind closed doors, I was like, hey, Zach, I'm going to leave. And Lauren and John, like, I was like, I'm going to leave. And everyone was like, okay. And so we were like, Zach's like, I don't want to do this, like warehouse stuff, like the actual people of management. So we outsourced the warehouse to Maryland. So I had an entire warehouse of people that I was going to lay off. Like all I knew I was going to lay these people. So Zach and I were secretly driving to Maryland, figuring out logistics of how we're going to get all the freakers to Maryland, figuring out how the mills were going to get. And so, meanwhile, these people think their jobs are safe and they're not safe. And that's the thing of like when you're working in a corp, you have no idea what's going on. So you might think things are cool, but
Right. The
yeah, and we
stability
have
is not stable.
right, you just
It's
don't
so true.
know. Yeah, and so I then later we had so once we figured out all the systems and like moving the warehouse and like outsourcing all the fulfillment, we had to like lay off all those people.
Mm.
um which also honestly they were all really cool about, which was, I mean, we gave everybody like severance and like we were really cool about it, but it really went better than I expected. So it was a long transition to leave. It wasn't just like I'm gone. And then even after I left, I then did consulting for them. Like I
Mm-hmm.
still then was like still working a little bit. Yeah, so then I sold my shares and I got out, and then I was like I'm just gonna make stuff. And then I started making stuff and doing stuff, and I even like went to New York and I hired like an accessory consultant to like help
I
me.
remember this point in your journey because we were
Right.
behind the stage at a fashion show and I was hosting. I think you were modeling or designing, and we had a mutual friend. My old roommate did
Yeah.
handbags, and we were trying to make this connection. And then that was the last I remember, like us having like a conversation on like your work. And then next thing I know, you were doing a whole nother. I'll let you get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
So what happened with that?
yeah, so we started doing it, and then I designed. This was crazy. I got to like meet this really amazing pattern maker in New like if anything out of this most amazing journey was going to New York, meeting this dude who he was a pattern maker for like Coach, and he like had made like special things for Oprah, and he was this old, and like his studio was so amazing and all of his sewing machines. And so I worked with him to like figure out like this like, exact bag I wanted to make and like manufacture. Meanwhile, I'm going down a very deep hole that's costing me a bunch of money. And I just kept being like, it's gonna work out. It's gonna work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, and so then in the meantime, I'm like trying to figure all this stuff out. And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to a trade show. And like also because of Freaker, like I knew how to do like trade show stuff, like line sheets. I knew how to do all that stuff because they would go to lots of trade shows. So I felt really great because I had this whole backbone of like business at this point. So I start making stuff. In the meantime, also I need money. So my friend Drew Smith. Drew was like, "Hey, my friend Kate is a wedding photographer, and do you think you could help her with her QuickBooks?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can help her." So I meet with Kate, and I'm like, "Oh, this is so easy. You're one person with one income, and you don't have an employee. Like, it's just so
Bam!
much."
I got this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I can help her. And so I helped Kate figure stuff out. And I was like, hey, Kate, don't tell anyone I know how to do this. Like, I don't want to do this, but like, yeah. And it was
Mm-hmm.
so easy. And Kate was just so happy that I like taken it off her plate. And I was like, this takes me like no time every month. I'll just do your books. You pay me a little bit of money, whatever. So then, slowly people just kept asking me, and I would just be like, okay, I'll help you. Okay, I'll help you. And then I help so Justin Mitchner at Brand Engine. Like I'd always been doing his books for even at Freaker, I was doing his books. But like so it was this thing where I'd kind of been doing it. And then I was basically like I'm sewing, I'm making stuff, but like it's just not going great. I also like felt so isolated
Mm-hmm.
because I'm literally just, and when I see people online, like when I know other makers, and I just know that you're literally in a room making stuff and you're making the same thing repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've made a million tiny wallets. You know what I mean? Like I've made,
Right.
so it was just really, I was really lonely. I'm used to like being in an office with a bunch of people. And so I'm like making stuff, selling stuff, but it's still like, it's not as much money as I'm used to making. And I'm just like, also, I think when you leave a company where you're doing so much more in sales, it feels like really intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, like, I mean, also the other thing is I like making really detail oriented things. Like I'm like hand drawing things, I'm hand screen printing things. And so like you can't sell things at the level that I need to sell them to make the money to get my time back.
Right. But I will
Like,
say it's so funny though because you are so double side of the brain because so many artists will just say, and I'm like you, I have both sides, but like, and I'm like you where I'm like, it's so beautiful, it's my passion, I love doing this, it's like so fulfilling, but at the end of the day, it's not going to get me anywhere. Where a lot of artists are like, I don't care. This is
yeah,
what I'm doing. This is my life, and this is what makes me happy, and I don't care about the money, you know. So It really is crazy that you can work in both frames of that,
I
and to
mean,
go that far down a design path to New York City
oh
and
my
then take a
gosh.
step back and say, yeah, it's just not gonna. It's not the best option.
Yeah, and I just well also Dallas, Dallas is a painter, and so Dallas still has art shows and it's like we already have. I'm not like he already does that, and Dallas has the like I'm always going to make art. I don't care if I ever make money, that sort of thing. And so
Right.
I mean, he also does like graphic design for film too. So he has a real job, like another job too. But yeah, so basically I love doing it, but also there were all these things I didn't love about it. Like things you don't realize. Like I don't like being by myself. I don't
Mm.
like and when I used to do Ruby Asata before Freaker, my best friend Courtney was with me. And Courtney and I did it together. And Courtney managed stuff and Courtney organized stuff. And like it was so fun doing
It's
it
a
with her.
partnership, right?
And then she started working in film when I started working at Freaker. And so then it's just like that thing where like I was just by myself and I like hated it. So also it just like it was just hard. It was just really hard. And
Right.
it was not fun. Making stuff is fun. This isn't fun. So anyway, and then I just kept having people ask me about stupid bookkeeping. And I was like, okay. And then eventually I was like, well, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do
Stupid
this.
bookkeeping.
It will it just it's
Your main
so
your main job. Stupid bookkeeping.
yeah. And I was like, well, I literally was like, don't tell anyone I know how to do this.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. I can't believe I do this. So I was like, Drew and Kate at this point had Drew and Kate. And I was like, all right, if we're gonna do this, let's really do this. And so yeah, so then in 20 August of 2019, which like is a long time ago, but then you realize the pandemic happened. So it's just a weird thing. Like
It
I
changed.
basically was only doing it for like 4 or 5 months before. Anyway, yeah, so Drew and Kate, I was like, let's do it. So we did a photo shoot and I was like, and Drew and Kate are just so like we mesh so well of like, I mean, Drew and I are good friends, so that helps. But like we're like, let's get pink everything. Let's if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. And so we did a full photo shoot and website and then like they really made all of my website dreams come true. Like it really helped visually.
It
So
is phenomenal. And if for anyone listening who doesn't know, Drew and Kate's a branding firm, but they're also best friends. And they really are so great about finding who you are and putting it in as the face of your business, which is
yeah,
exactly what they did. And I encourage everyone after this conversation, after listening, for many reasons to go check out the website because you have so much great helpful information, which we can dive into later. But, and just to see because they do such a great job putting your face as the front, not necessarily your face, but who you are
it's
as
a
the front
lot
of
of
your
my face.
business, which is beautiful. We want a lot of that.
Yeah, and basically I was like, oh, if I'm gonna do this, I'm only gonna do it for creatives because I really love talking to people about their work. Like it's like a fun way to connect. And I also like it's cool having an Instagram where I'm just following and looking at people's work that I enjoy work like other designers, jewelry makers, photographers, like graphic designers. And so yeah, I was like, I'm only doing it for creatives. That's it. I'm also it's this bar of like, I'm not trying to help people I'm not trying to help you make money. It's not, it's like you have a passion of a thing you want to do. I'm helping you get it organized and get it set up to where like you can like be a real business.
Right.
And I think I just run into so many, it's also just really cool, like because I have this weird knowledge now. Like I've been through it and like learned like how to do accounting. And like you don't learn that at art school. They don't in like and like Dallas and I talk about this, how it was almost like trying to make money off of your work as a fine artist is kind of like not like the goal, like you can't like and
Right.
so you're
It's
not
frowned
taught
upon.
yeah, it's like that's not, you're making art for art's sake. So it's just like it's a really cool thing that I've accidentally learned all of this weird accounting knowledge. And so yeah, so I love helping creatives. So then I then started getting so now I have like retainer clients. So I have like my clients that I do their books monthly for that are like,
Mm-hmm.
I do all of their things. I also have someone who works with me now, Erin also has a master's in poetry. I love that like we're doing this together. She reached out to me. Her mom owned an independent bookstore growing up, and she used to help her mom do the books. And so she's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
yeah. And she's like, I know how to do it. I mean, she was like, I'm probably rusty, but like, she's like working at like a software company. And she was like, I really want out. And I was like, okay. I was like, I've been looking for someone, but doing financial stuff is really hard to hire someone. Like, you have to trust someone a lot.
Right.
And so Erin and I have known each other for 10 years, and she's like one of the best humans, like just like sweetest, nice, like most honest human you've ever met. So yeah, so Erin came on. So now we do it together. So she helps me, which has been huge. And then I also do consulting calls where like, which is super great for like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I
Right. Where do I
so
start?
yeah, where do I start? Or like, I'm doing this thing. Is this what I should be doing? And so I do Zoom calls for like it used to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, but with the baby, my life is really crazy. But yeah, so I've talked to people all over the country, like copywriters and graphic designers who are like, hey, I'm doing this thing, but I'm not doing any of the other stuff. Like I don't have QuickBooks, I don't have a separate bank account, I don't know what I'm doing. And I've talked to people who are making lots of money.
Right.
They literally are just like, I just never wanted to look at it. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then also like, I help them get a CPA and help them just like get their shit together.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a non-negotiable, like that's something you have to have whether people have it or not, you have to, and
Yeah.
I owned a business
Yeah.
and I went to business school and I understood it, but that doesn't mean that I have time to sit down and do it, nor do I understand like some of the deeper stuff that is very much important. But again, and I like to be very hands-on as most creatives do, you like to be very hands-on, you want to know exactly what's going on, but it's just we need people who are guiding us, to say the least,
Yeah. Yeah. And I also find that like every time I have a call with somebody, they're always like, I was so nervous to talk to you. And I'm like, that's like, I just want to be that person to be like, listen, I used to not know this either. I
Mm-hmm.
went to school for none of this. And I learned it the hard way by doing it like, like actually like running a business. And so I think it's like I come from like such a weird perspective of like I get that you're like doing what you want to do, but I also get the part where you need to make money. And I think when you're talking, so like I'm not a CPA, and I think any traditional CPA, they've never, this is the thing, A, they've never went to school for art, but B, they've also never probably owned a business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a weird thing of like, I mean, I don't ever want to be a CPA. I just, but like it's that thing of like I'm that bridge between a CP, like these financial people. Like I have a meeting tomorrow with one of my clients that has a media, like I will be that medium person that like that,
Yes.
because she's like I don't know what they're talking about, and and so I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. I will be that person that's in between. So because a lot of times CPAs and financial advisors, like they just use such like big words and lingo you don't understand, and it's just and I think that I don't know if they like no one's meaning probably to do that, but it makes you just feel so
No,
intimidated.
it does. And I'm like a very thick skinned person. And that's one of the things, I mean, even to this day, when I have to talk money, when I have to go into a bank, and I know what I'm talking about, it's not that I don't know, but I am so easily hurt by these people. And they're not intending to do it. It's my own insecurities because I'm like, I don't think the way that they think. And like you said, we need someone in the middle to help because I have had accountants come in and look at my books and make me cry like multiple times. And I cry all the time about like movies, but I don't cry in business meetings. Like I put on my
Yeah.
tough face and go home and cry. But like you said, we need that in between. And that's what's so cool. I mean, you found like a niche market, and it's never a bad idea to like hone in on these like
I mean,
niche
niche
market ideas.
It's my like niche marks are I love when I hear weird businesses. It's like my favorite. I was reading, this was probably a couple months ago, but like there is a company that's starting to do video rentals again, like VHSs,
Okay.
and you'll rent the VCR as well. And I love when someone's like, that's never going to work. And I'm like, no, it probably will, because
It
it's
will.
so weird. And I just love when I hear people doing weird things. Like uh, it's my favorite, and I think that like that's what's successful is
Well, it
these.
is, and there's no direct competition, which is like it's no brainer. If there's nobody out there doing what you're doing or doing what you're doing the way you're doing it,
Yeah.
and this is my husband and I both own businesses, which but I mean that's the thing. Like we sit down and we're like, okay, when we have an idea of something we want to do or business we want to open, we're like, okay, most of the time there's other things similar to what we're doing. How
Yeah.
do we make it different, and how do you flip the script on it? And that's, I feel like, the missing piece of some people, because some people want to be entrepreneurs and they have great ideas, but it's not going to be as successful as you want it to be if you're doing something that somebody else is doing. And that's the beginning and the end of it. There's no
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
black or it's black and white.
And it's so hard because you feel intimidated to be like, okay, so say I have this, I mean, even doing wait, what? Like I've come across like maybe a few people that are like, I'm only working with create because the like usually CPAs and like financial don't want to work with creatives because they annoy them.
Right.
It annoys them that they don't care about
We're a
money.
lot. We're a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, my husband, like Dallas is like a prime example of just like, I don't want to talk about pricing. I don't just like do whatever. Like, and he doesn't he just wants to make the art. And so like, I'm that, I think that like there are very few people that want to like be that person to be like, let's talk about money and your books are real messed up and I'm going to help you. Whereas
Yeah.
CPAs generally like, I don't have time for this. And also like, I love working with small people. Like I don't ever want to work with anyone that's like large. You know what I mean? Like that's not the
Right.
goal. The goal is to like just to continue to help these little companies like become bigger companies. Yeah, I love when things are so niche. Like that VCR rental thing. I mean,
I was just saying last night, I had some old videos of my dad who's passed, and my son was saying, I want to see videos of, your dad. And I was like, well, I have them, but I don't have a VCH. I don't even know where I would
where do
get
you even
that
get that?
from.
Yeah.
Or a VCR, whatever, VCR, whatever.
We don't even know because that's how old they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't remember. But yeah, that really is a great idea. And I think too, um, like I love so my favorite thing to do is like I play connect the dots. So for you, it's like I love how in life you just like never once stopped. I feel like a lot of people will stop and get discouraged, but I really feel like how you had such a like propelled path, and I don't know why or how. I mean, do you credit it to anything? I mean, was there anything ever in life that you were like, do you ever stop and think like, why did I not stop, or why did I not stay at Freaker, or why did I not, or is it just your attitude, who you are?
I think that like I just like I think part of it is like probably having anxiety and then my brain like I just can't stop running things around in my brain. So once I like start thinking about something and I can't get it out of my brain, like so say it's like I want to leave Freaker, I then can't stop thinking about it. And so then I like know it's a thing I have to do, and I think that that's kind of like one like and like with wait what it's like or with Ruby Asata being like okay because I had the baby I had a baby
You have a
in
6 month old sweet little boy.
in February. So right before I had Lou, I was like, here's the thing. I love making stuff and I want to sew and I want to do stuff, but I also don't want to feel guilty that I'm not doing it. And so I put all my sewing machines up, like all like my industrial sewing machines, all of my everything is just like in storage. And I was like, here's the thing. This year is about Lou. And like I'm gonna work and do it what. And like eventually one day I'm gonna like get back to making stuff, but I want to do it like I want to do it when I have time and I want to do it when it's like focused and like having a tiny baby is just not the time. And so I think that's kind of like making that decision was helpful too. Just be like, I'm doing that. And like with wait, what I just couldn't stop thinking about like things I can do. Like I love doing talks. I love going and talking. Like I would go to sleep at night just thinking like how cool it'd be to like do a talk and like help and connecting with different people. Like I did a talk with like Triangle Pop Up in Raleigh. They do like big markets.
Okay.
And like going and I went to Raleigh and I did a talk with like a bunch of like of their creatives there. And like I just think it's so cool to think about all the markets and like think about like different like I don't know, you think like Renegade Craft Fair, like places like that where wait, what would just like, I would love to like talk to those people. And so I think that that's like what propels me is just thinking like, I can't ever stop thinking about other opportunities and cool stuff. Like I really want to make courses because to make it like cheaper for people, like you're a photographer, like how do I do QuickBooks or like how
Genius. Yes, genius.
so things like that. So I think that's what propels me and keeps me going. Also, like I'm motivated by money. Like I need money to live. So it's just like that's helpful too. You know what I mean? To be like, okay, this is a way to make money.
Right. No, it is true. I mean, I've had this talk before too. It's like you can totally have your passions, but in the end of the day, there has to be something propelling that passion. You know what I mean? There
Yeah.
has to be something funding you. And if you don't know what it is, or if there's something that's not like interesting you, then just make your own path. Like you did, like
Yeah.
I'm
I
doing what
mean,
I love.
yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna do accounting, I want all the branding to be pink. Like that's like
Yeah.
um I also have a mom who's like an extremely hard worker. Also like she my whole life has worked really hard and for not a lot of money. My mom's not good at like the advancement of her career. She's good at the like,
Mm.
I'm doing like, she's just so committed. And
Well,
it's,
different generation too. I feel like we
yeah,
are that one step into the next generation of, hey, we're doing big things,
yeah.
and you're
And
gonna,
my
yeah,
mom was just like, keep your head down.
yeah,
And yeah, and she just worked so hard my whole life. And my dad was the opposite. And my dad was like, I hate this thing. I'm going to do this thing. And he was always like doing different things. And like, so I feel like having both of them, like my dad being like, I'm going to do whatever I want. And my mom being like, I'm going to stay at this job I hate. So we have health insurance. Like,
right,
and my mom still works all the time and like trying to schedule my mom and dad to see the baby. My mom's like, well, I have to work. And I'm like, you don't have, I'm like, you're like half retired, mom. She's like,
mm-hmm.
and her commitment to like work is hard. She is
Right.
she's a very hard worker. So I have that in me as well, I think.
You have mom and dad. Okay, so will you do like, okay, we need some financial tips, right? So
Okay.
anyone
Yeah.
listening, anyone,
Yeah.
your top
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 tips. Like, what do we
Yes.
all need to start with? I know you have them.
Okay. So financial, like you own a business. So I don't do personal finance. Like that's like a world of like, that's a whole different
Whole
world
nother
because
thing.
well, and especially because like, with business, I can figure out how to buy a thing that I want and how it could make us money. But like at home, I can't figure out how to like buy that sweater and make it, that's not a
Mm-hmm.
tax deduction. So
Right.
yeah. So anyone who's like, I want to start it, or like say you're already doing a little thing, like you're knitting hats. Pottery is usually my example. You're making pots and you want to go bigger. The very first one is get a separate bank account. Even if it's just a little hobby that you're doing, you're never going to know how much money you're making or spending if it's all mixed into your personal. Even if it's tiny, open a separate like it could still be a personal checking account just to like keep it separated. And then that way you can kind of track and kind of see like how am I doing? And then you're like, and then at that point you're like, this is going well. I want to make this a real business. And so I encourage people just at the minimum, just get an LLC. If you're in North Carolina, it costs $200, but it makes the liability separate between your business and your personal. And I also find that when people do this, they generally start making more money because they're taking it more seriously. And then you'll open a said bank account with the LLC and that actual business. You'll open a bank account
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll get QuickBooks,
Yes.
which is key to everything. I mean, QuickBooks. So also you want to get QuickBooks. The simple start is like there's simple start and then there's like other ones above it, but you want to at least start with that. Do not get QuickBooks Self-Employed. Do not get QuickBooks Self-Employed. It is a weird
Oh,
version of QuickBooks.
you've already lost me. I'm already calling you and hiring you. Like, I can do the bank account, I can do the LLC, but like once we get to QuickBooks, like that's on you, girl. That is on
Yeah, and
you.
so I do consulting calls literally where we just do screen shares, and especially when people are just starting out because it's so easy when you only have like a handful of transactions, and I can get you started and we like do I'm like I can show you how to use QuickBooks in a way that you're like, oh, okay, this is easy because it's not a million things.
And
And
I'm
then
no bookkeeper, but I will say, I don't want to interrupt. The
yeah,
sooner the better. The
oh yeah.
sooner the better, because I dove in way too far and I was up for hours every night going through pages and putting different things in different categories, and I remember thinking, why did I do, and I didn't know better. It's not like I
No, yeah.
knew.
Yeah. And that's like the second. So, like, that's what I feel like the second you feel. Here's the other thing I want to tell people, and people don't understand is like the second you're making money, the second like you made a bowl and then I sold it to you, like, unfortunately, the IRS, like, that is income. Like, and you are supposed to claim that income. And nobody wants to do that. But I mean, in the chances of you getting audited and caught are pretty low. But I'm just saying, like, the second it starts to like get pretty real, you should start keeping books because it's going to make your life so much easier. Also, the Janet, that lovely CPA that was helping me. So when she came in to help me, she said, you need to do everything as if you're going to get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I was like, that's morbid, Janet. And
Wow,
Janet was like,
Janet. My
Janet.
God.
Well, but basically, she was like, here's the thing. You can't, and I talk to people all the time that are always like, oh, well, I know what I have a system for that. And it's like, no, no, no. It needs to be a universal system that everyone can understand. And that's why like QuickBooks is great because CPAs know how to use it. And when people tell me, they're like, oh, no, I'm using spreadsheets. And I'm like, well, first of all, you can't reconcile a spreadsheet, and reconciliation is like the cornerstone of bookkeeping. So like that's why you need bookkeeping, but also you want to make it to where like if you wanted you sold a business, if you want to sell a
Yes.
business, you want to be able to have a clean profit and loss and balance sheet being like, here you go, here's my business. And you can't just give them an Excel. Like it's just,
Right. And
and
just like
people,
Janet said, no, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, people never think, people are always, I'm like, you want to build it as if you're going to sell it. And people are
Mhm.
always like, I'm not going to sell my business, but you don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would have never said 5 years in I was going to sell my business. Not a chance. I opened a business because I loved it and I wanted to do it and I had every aspiration to do it and to grow it and to but but motherhood hit me.
Yeah.
Something from out of left field. Like, I knew I wanted to be a mom, but I thought I could do both and I couldn't.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, like what you said, you put your sewing machine up. I had to put it away because I wanted to focus on the kids. And yes, so 100%, you never know. Just like Janet said, you could get hit by a bus, right?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, so it's like you want to build it. It's like you want to like start putting processes in place in your, even when you're a tiny business, like, that like if as it grows, it's going to make your life so much easier if you set up QuickBooks and you sold 3 cups, but you bought some clay. So now we like you're building it, and QuickBooks is like $30 a month, which I think is very reasonable. They also will help you calculate sales tax, which is like the worst. I help people with sales tax a lot, especially in North Carolina, because it's really hard. And especially if you're selling in other counties in North Carolina, it's a
And it's
pain.
not always bad. I mean, I feel like you've talked about this too. I've seen on your Instagram. It's not always like a bad thing to become an official business. Like, oh, I have to claim this and I have to IRS and all that. But you also can do write offs all the time too,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
great. You know
And
what I mean?
especially if you're an artist, this is like I feel like it's just like, I don't know, it's just the best because it's like, oh, cool, you get to go to an art museum that inspires you. Oh, that's a tax deduction because that is connected to like how you do business. That is connected
Wait,
to
what?
business,
I'm gonna throw it in there. I'm gonna throw it in there. No, but
right?
seriously, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like I love like, okay, for instance, like, making bags, it's like I'm so excited to buy this new piece of machinery, like a skiver that like shaves leather, whatever. Like it's so cool that like that's a tax deduction. And I'm getting to lower my taxable income and buy things that like I love, like I want to buy this because I love doing the thing I do. Or like, a cool, especially if you are a maker, it's like that cool fabric you want to like try, that cool, like there's just so many things that it's so much better than if like you're like an investment broker and you can write off I don't know what, it's just,
I
it's so,
remember when I was teaching dance, they were like, my accountant was like, well, you can write some of the stuff off. And I was like, what? He was like, well, do you buy music? And I was like, yeah, like a lot of music. And he was like, well, do you dance to it? And I was like, I guess. He was like, then you can write all that off. Write off
yeah,
iTunes, write off everything. And I was like, he's like, do you drive to dance? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, then you can write off your gas. And I'm like, wait, what? Again, but
yeah.
seriously, I'm like, whoa, why do we not learn this in high school? Why is it home ec and not the beginnings of finance? You know what I
I
mean?
mean, it's so, I mean, I will say that like what happens like it's like I was listening to something and they like this thing of like why don't we learn this in high school, and it's because high schoolers don't give a shit, like they don't care about it.
Very
And
true.
so like, but my thing is like, why are you not learning this in school? And I'm sure like I know that UNCW actually has like an entrepreneurial like degree, like you can get a
Mm-hmm.
degree in, but I'm also like, why aren't they connecting it better to
Right?
like art or like creative things? And I don't know. And also like you're not like born knowing this stuff. You're not born to know that like you can write off like your iTunes and what, and also people are so scared. That's the other thing. Don't be scared. Like the chances that you're like you writing off your iTunes and someone being like, but I'm not listening to all this music just for dance. Like y'all, it's gonna
It's
be
not the
okay.
point.
Like,
Mm-hmm. It's not
yeah,
the point.
it's so I think it's like people are so scared to write stuff off sometimes. Like they're scared that like, but it's like that's the whole point of running the business. Like not point, but like you're running a business. Like this is a viable. Also, like this is how people who are rich, like they're writing everything off. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing.
Yes. So if they're doing it, we're gonna do it too. You know
Right.
what I
And
mean?
and I mean, I'm a very like by the book person, but yeah, like writing off your Adobe subscription, like all that stuff. It's like there's, and you're like, oh, I love doing graphic design. I didn't think I could, but the art angle is such a cool angle because you're able to like write up art books you love, like that's so cool. We're like, and business books or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's like the most fun way to run a business is like through an art business because it's I don't know. If you're going to do that stuff anyway, you would have wanted to buy that book anyway.
Right. I was going to ask this earlier. This is kind of off topic of what we're talking about, but your dad,
Yeah.
does he appreciate your handbag making and all of that? Or is that like a different thing? Like, I know he does the industrial type things, like with leather and stuff. Like, when you were like, Dad, look, I could take this leather from your car seat and make it into a really cool bag. Does he think that's cool? Or is he like, not my thing?
Yeah, no, I think my dad does my dad's really weird. He's like I
Love
mean,
that.
but I think he might like be on the spectrum. Like he's so focused on when he's like he's really into his stuff and he doesn't really care about other people like in that way.
Okay.
But it is a way that we can, but it's funny you ask that because it's definitely like a way we can connect. I will call my dad and be like, hey, listen, like my bobbin is like, my bobbin thread isn't working right. Would you have any tips for that? And like we will talk sewing stuff and I'll show him like things I've made and be like, oh, I think your stitching's really great on this. And I mean,
Yeah, that's
handbag,
not normal conversations with dad.
no, no.
No.
Handbag making is way similar to like cabinetry, like just like design, like it's not, it's math. It's all math. Like when you're making bags, like and pattern making is my favorite part. Like I love like figuring out the design. I love figuring out how this is going to connect to this and how this is going to like all that like really detail oriented stuff. So it's really funny because it's like, yeah, it's creative and it's art, but it's very structured and and my
Right.
dad and I both are like
Industrial.
that. Yeah, it's very like you can't just like, I don't know. And this is why there are like people who design stuff and then there's people that like you know what I mean? Like there are
Mm-hmm.
people who like specifically
It's
do the
different.
pattern making and then someone who's designed it. And I would say like I probably in another life, like that's what I should have done. It's like not been the designer, not that I love designing stuff and making stuff, but someone bringing something to me and saying like, I want to make this. I'm like that person that's like, okay,
There's
I want to
still
figure out
so
how to make
much time. There is so much time. All you gotta do is make a right after bookkeeping, just make a right, and
well,
then
and
you're gonna find that path,
I mean, the thing about bookkeeping is like doing it is like one of the reasons I actually started like really was motherhood. Like I knew that we were gonna have I knew a baby was on the horizon. Accounting is something I can do from anywhere. Like I can do it from my house. I can do it on vacation. I could do it, it's like all I need is my computer. And that was really like was so I can do it in the middle of the night. I can do it early in the morning. I can do it during like loose sleeping. I can do it during naps. Like, or like with sewing, like I can't I can't take an industrial sewing machine anywhere. I can't run it all the time. Also, we're dealing with like lots of sharp things, like
right.
lots of
Didn't think about
scissors.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Need I mean, it's also like the sewing the skiver literally is like that used to be set up in our house. It's just like a blade running like this. And so it's like I knew that with accounting I could I could make money and like have time for like a baby.
Well, that's really, really good timing for pandemic too, because I feel like a lot of people have your same exact story, only it's not because of a child and sharp things. It's because of pandemic, and I don't want to work in a workplace, or I can't, or whatever it.
Yeah,
So
no, I mean, I think for sure it really well, here's the thing about the pandemic that was great for Wait What is like so when I first started, obviously it was like people in town in Wilmington. I was doing books for a few people in town. But then whenever the pandemic happened, I started helping people from all over the country because we'd only do Zooms. And
right.
so I literally would like open my calendar and be like, okay, I have a call with so and so. Oh, you're in San Diego. Okay, cool. Or you're in Vermont or you're in Washington. And it's because the internet but people now have opened their minds to like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Yeah.
people, I don't have to physically meet with a person for
Yeah.
them I mean, I would have never thought about Zoom before the pandemic. I would have never thought about doing it like this and screen sharing and it's awesome. So now it makes it a much wider audience for me.
Okay, so you're thriving right now. You've got your bookkeeping business. Like, you're killing it. You really are. And I think you've really found such a great, like we said, niche market where okay. But now here's my next question, because
Yes.
obviously, as we've talked about, your brain doesn't stop. So, do you have any ideas for future? Like, where would you like to see yourself continuing this? Like you said, doing like online courses and stuff, or do you really think that you probably will dive back into fashion, or do you just not know? You have no idea.
I mean, I have to eventually get back to like making stuff because like sewing and making things are like, but like I don't know how to monetize that at the level of detail. You know what I mean? Like they're just so it's like I don't know how to monetize that yet. But what I would say is like I have figured out like doing accounting like this, it's like there's no reason why I can't just like teach other people to do the things that I'm doing. Like there are people that literally go to school for accounting, you know? And then so I think that like one of the paths I've thought about is just growing it to a way where like I'm not doing like there are I'm showing a CPA or I'm showing someone who has a degree in accounting how to talk to a creative.
Oh, wow. So you're consulting CPAs on creatives. That is genius.
And then that way it's just like a less of like, and then also having those people work for Wait What, and then Wait What being a thing that isn't me doing it so
An
much. But
agency. Now
yes,
that's fancy. That is
I mean,
awesome.
I have some ideas. I mean, but also I really want to work on course creation because I feel like there are no courses out there that are specifically designed for like, okay, I'm a photographer. How do I set my QuickBooks up? I'm a, it's like QuickBooks. Like if you Google it, like setting up QuickBooks, it's like literally it's for the sample company is a lawn care, like the example QuickBooks that if you ever like using QuickBooks,
Right.
the examples are always lawn care. And it's the farthest removed from like any sort of creative business. So I think that would be a great like way to do it. But I mean, basically that's the other thing about doing what I'm doing is like I have the time to not time, but like I can make this I can take clients or not take clients or do consult like and so like right now I can't do as much consulting. Like I have my like people that I like do their books and I do a little bit of consulting here and there, but like I can't because of Lou. But it's like I could wrap like it's really cool to be able to be like, oh, I'm going on vacation. Okay, I'm not doing any consulting calls for 2 weeks and then open it back up. And so it gives me so much more flexibility that I'm hoping in the future that that flexibility turns into like a way where I can like make stuff again when Lou's a little older and in school and
Right.
yeah, I have to keep making stuff. I can't like not make stuff. That seems
Right.
crazy.
That's so genius though. So okay, so you have I just signed up last night. You have this really great newsletter that everyone needs to go sign up for, Ladies Who Crunch, which is
Yep.
so great. I did that. You guys have got to go. Maybe you need Alicia for your services. Maybe you're creative, or maybe you just want to like for me, I don't have a business right now, but I do have I feel like a lot of the things you talk about really do kind of cross over. I know you don't look personal, but I found some really great little pieces in there, little nuggets in there that I was able to take away. So I will link everyone up to what's your website? Wait, what?
Oh, wait, what? Consulting.com.
Waitwhatconsulting.com.
Yep.
And I'll
Yep.
link everyone up. But thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. It was so good to see you. It's also crazy because of pandemic and then pregnancy and then having the baby. Like I haven't gone out in the world in so long. So it's so nice to see your face.
I know, I know. Well, thank you so much, and we will talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.